Good evening, everyone. My name is Desiree and Mondesir, and we are on installment or day or chapter 5 of my Otherworldly series, and I'm super duper excited to be able to present this series to you. Hey Bree, hey Tara, see y'all know what's up. I am running a little late. I do apologize. I was out running errands today, and then I had a Lyft that was bringing me back home, and then the Lyft got canceled twice, and then the Lyft that finally showed up took twice as long to get home. Lord Jesus. So, but it was a very nice Lyft man, and I told him about tonight. So maybe he'll watch this, or maybe he'll watch the replay. So hey ladies, Bree, Tara, Brandy, all the ladies. So thank you for showing up. Please share this. Please let me know where you're watching from. Can I show you guys something? I posted this on my profile and on Instagram. So I was at Starbucks today. I'm just giving you guys a chance to settle in. Look at how they spell my name, y'all. Desire. They spelled it Desire. Every single Starbucks I go in. Doesn't matter what city, they always spell my name Desire. And that's the best pronunciation or the best spelling of my name. There's another E, people. But anywho, thank you. Please come on. Please tag people. Please invite people. I want to thank those of you who've been watching with me this week. The whole series this far is uploaded to YouTube, so you can find it there. You can click my stories because I showed you guys my YouTube channel there, so go subscribe if you haven't already. Thank you to those of you who pre-ordered and ordered my ebook, Otherworldly. I want to thank you. Tara, you ordered this month's November special. Hey, Sebastian. This month's November special includes not only Otherworldly, but it also includes the Angels and Demons teleseminar with the outline and the diagrams. Hey, bro. We got Mobile, Alabama in the house. Whoop, whoop. Okay. So, yeah. So thank you to those of you who have invested in yourself by purchasing Otherworldly or this month's November special. I think I'm going to keep doing like a monthly special. And what the monthly special is it's offering you my products in a fun packaged way. And because it's packaged, it's discounted. So you don't have to pay the full price if you just were to buy the items regularly or just randomly, if you will. Miscellaneously, is that a word? So yeah. Brandy, you said you have a friend named Desire. Is it Desire or do they pronounce it Desiree? Because even I forget sometimes that Desire is spelled with the E. Okay, because I tell people it's Desire with the extra E, and then they look at me like a deer in headlights. And I'm like, it's 2 E's, people. 2 E's at the end. Okay. Whatever. I'm just happy that I got my peppermint mocha fixed today. I have my peppermint mocha creamer in the fridge. You said no, it's just Desire. Okay, well, I've never met someone named Desire. That's awesome. My name actually has both. So my name is Desiree Mondesir. So my name actually means in French, desire, my desire. So it is the spirit of the meaning. But anywho, please invite people to watch this. Hey, Sebastian's on here. Some of you guys may have caught our series, Witches in the Pews and Warlocks in the Pulpit. We coming back on Monday night on Brother Sebastian's page. So if you're curious, ask Sebastian questions about what we're doing. It's going to be 9 Eastern Standard Time. Okay, get the time zones mixed up. But that's going to be Monday night. 9 Eastern Standard, 8 Central Standard. Okay? So 9 Eastern Standard. Okay? So I encourage you guys, if you haven't already watched those, you can go to Sebastian's profile. You can dig through my profile, although I don't encourage it. You can go to Sebastian's profile and you can see the videos, or I guess you could go to my videos on my personal profile. I believe it should have been shared to this page as well, but you can see not from this week, but from the 2 weeks before, we did 2 installments of Witches in the Pews and Warlocks in the Pulpit. So we're going to do Q&A on Monday night. So definitely Be prepared for that. But we are back to Otherworldly, and tonight is chapter 5, and we are talking about aliens and UFOs. Are you excited? Because I'm excited, okay? So as you guys know, I start each chapter with a quote. So this one has a somewhat lengthy quote, and this is actually from, let's see, UFO and Alien and Ancient Astronaut Theory, along with Anunnaki and Nephilim by Chris Everard from Secret Space. Okay, that was a really long title. Basically, Chris Everard. That's Everard. Okay, so he says, if you study the legends of the North American shamans, the mythologies of ancient Europe, the creation histories of the Australian Aborigines, or the ancient Vedic or Vedic texts of India, especially the Sumerian clay tablets from ancient Iraq, we find that all great civilizations on the face of planet Earth tell one similar story. That is, in the distant past, people from the stars visited planet Earth and displayed fantastic technology. Sometimes they genetically engineered humans. Sometimes they directly interbred with humans. These so-called sky gods always visited in spectacular flying vehicles. These pearls of the sky, quote unquote, are mentioned in ancient Tibetan scriptures. More than one leading Tibetan author suspects that these spherical UFOs are actually alien probes monitoring the evolution of mankind. Okay. Now, you guys have heard me say this before in this series and in general. When you find a story in every ancient civilization, a universal story such as the flood, such as the giants, such as fairy type beings, whatever, it comes from a universal truth. Does it mean that that religion or that mythology is telling you the truth? No, it means that it was rooted and grew from, I should say, the truth. Once upon a time, they knew the truth, and then being passed down through oral histories and traditions and so forth and so on, it got perverted and twisted and just completely out of whack over time. But once upon a time, they knew the truth, and they spoke the truth as they understood it. Okay, so there is such a thing as universal truth. I'm a little parched. Y'all give me a moment. Woo! Okay, I've had too much coffee and not enough water today. Okay, so question 1, and you guys know we do this series in a sort, or the book is written, I should say, in sort of a casual Q&A format. I try to anticipate the questions you have, and then I do my best to answer them in all of the relevant ways, okay? So are aliens and UFOs real? As is the case with fairies and elves, yes, aliens are real, but not how you might imagine them. So if you're thinking of the characters from E.T., the extraterrestrial, or Men in Black, then you would be mistaken. However, there are extraterrestrial beings in outer space, and they do interact with our earthly realm. Okay. Next question. What are aliens and UFOs? Aliens are fallen angels. Okay? Fallen angels may appear as aliens, but all aliens are absolutely 1000% fallen angels, okay? The very nature of angels is tied to the heavens. When Lucifer and his delegation of rebellious angels were kicked out of heaven, their access to the third and highest heaven, which is God's heaven, was restricted. And since that heaven belongs to God and man's heaven, the sky and atmosphere belong to humanity. Lucifer was installed as the ruler of the in-between space, also known as the second heaven or outer space. You can also call this the soulish realm, okay? We talked about various planes of existence as it pertains to the fairy realm or even the ancestral realm and all these other realms, okay? it is going to be found in the second heaven. So if they tell you it's a fairy realm, it's a simulation, but it is in the soulish realm. If they tell you that you can go astral project to the Norse tree of life called Yggdrasil, it is a simulation to deceive you, but it is still in the second heaven, in the outer space realm, in the soulish realm. Black Panther, T'Challa, if you want to be stripped of your panther powers and go into a deep sleep or a near-death experience and visit your past panthers and your daddy, you are not going to the ancestral plane, T'Challa. It is a simulation to deceive you, but it is the soulish realm. It is the demonic realm. It is outer space. I'm not saying necessarily that outer space is evil, but you're talking about layers of reality, okay? Layers of reality with simulation. So whether we talked about, we've mentioned a lot of times the gods, the pantheon of gods and goddesses from, the various mythologies from Egyptian, Sumerian, Mesopotamian, Greek, Akkadian, Roman, Norse, Celtic, okay? These are all just different masks, okay? The Celts thought that the gods appeared in one way. The Greeks and the Romans thought they appeared in another way, but we know that they weren't actually gods, okay? But it is a mask that the fallen angels wore to deceive people, okay? In the same way, this is where we get the idea of fairies and elves, okay? Demons and or fallen angels can appear as a fairy or an elf or a pixie or a leprechaun or a puck or a will-o'-the-wisp or whatever example, a nymph, a naiad, a dryad, whatever, a hamadryad, an undine, any of these names, any of these cultural representations, it is a mask, and whatever mask is the most alluring to you is the one that you will be deceived by, but for the grace of God, okay? But for the blood of Jesus, okay? And I'm not saying this as a fear-mongering thing, I'm just saying there are certain people who have proclivities and susceptibilities, especially if they delve into these deep, dark fantasy realms, because you can have fun fantasy that's like harmless, that's like Lord of the Rings and Chronicles of Narnia and things like that, and then you can have deep, dark, demonic fantasy that is full of demonic stuff, okay? And that's a different topic for a different day. Hey Antonio, hey Onitra, hey Tona. Okay, so aliens is just another mask. Extraterrestrials, and even, I don't like to necessarily use aliens and extraterrestrials as interchangeable, although society does, because the thing is, the Bible calls us aliens. Somebody put that in the comments when I was asking them, do you think, or what questions do you have about aliens? Now, obviously, I was not asking about Christians, but the Bible does say that believers are aliens. We're aliens in this world because our spirit is from another world. We're from God. We belong to heaven. We will return to heaven. We're just sojourning down here for a little while, But ultimately, we do not belong to this world. We are not of the world, but we are in it. So in that context, we are aliens, okay? Abraham was a stranger in a strange land. The Israelites who were in captivity said, how can we sing the songs of Zion in a strange land? They were aliens, okay? We're not talking about aliens in a foreign context. We're not talking about foreigners, I should say. We're talking about beings who were not created for the earth, who are not created for the earthly terrestrial realm, okay? We're talking about creatures who were created for the heavens, okay? Those are extraterrestrials. Yes, Tona. And so that's what we're talking about. So Jesus was an alien. Now don't get on here and say that I said something crazy now, okay? Because Jesus is God. Is he not? Jesus is the Son of God. Is he not? Jesus sent the Holy Spirit. That Jesus was an alien. Again, in a similar context that we are aliens. As believers, as Jewish people who believe in Jesus the Messiah, we are aliens sojourning in this world. He sojourned for 33 and a half years, okay? And then he left and went back to where he belonged, in heaven at the right hand of the Father, okay? Who else was an alien? I'm trying to think. Every angel you see. Gabriel, Michael, the commander of the host that some think is Jesus. I disagree, but it's neither here nor there. The angel of the Lord in every context, which again, some think it's Jesus, but I think it's not, but it depends on the context. Whatever, neither here nor there. Those are aliens, okay? And those are extraterrestrials, I should say, because they are not assigned to live on the earth. You can visit Earth, but you're not assigned to live and dwell and work 24/7 on the earth, okay? So that's what we're talking about. So aliens are fallen angels. So yes, I believe aliens exist, but not as like Hollywood or sci-fi portrays them as existing. And I don't even want to like negate sci-fi, because a lot of things that we used to say, oh, that's just science fiction, are becoming proven, okay? Such as traveling through portals, wormholes, A Wrinkle in Time, or Folding Time. I've referenced it, A Wrinkle in Time before, and Folding Time. Let me do a demonstration for you. Give me just one moment, okay? Okay, I needed a piece of paper. So, Folding Time or Wrinkle in Time, if you guys saw the movie was trash. From a literary standpoint, the movie was trash. Cinematically, it was gorgeous. But the books are different. I've read all 5 of the books of the quintet, and I've read it 3 times, and it's totally different. But the concept of wrinkling time, this is a piece of paper. This paper represents time, okay? So what is the movie was good if you haven't read the books, okay? It was destroyed for me because I read the books. So I was like grumbling the whole time I saw the movie. But again, Ava DuVernay did a phenomenal job from a cinematic standpoint, but it was a trash job from the literary standpoint in the context of the whole quintet. But again, different subject for a different day. But the concept that they even illustrate in the book is that the piece of paper represents time, okay? So time is linear, okay? You can only go typically one direction, so to speak, okay? What is the shortest point between point A and point B? Typically, you would say a straight line, right? Unfortunately, that is not actually the quickest route. The quickest route is this, okay? If you fold time, because then you just have this little short distance as opposed to having to go across the whole piece of paper. And the distance between point A and point B in this context is a wormhole, is a black hole, is a tesseract. They say the moment you enter a black hole, you end up on the other side of it almost immediately, okay? I believe that's how angels travel. So when we talk about traveling, not astral projection necessarily, but just traveling through the universe, or how angels travel. Hey, Asa, what's up? That's what we're talking about. That is more than likely the context of how people travel, and that was a sci-fi concept that people are starting to learn more and more and more about, okay? So I don't want to necessarily negate sci-fi, because again, a lot of things that once were classified strictly as science fiction are becoming true. A lot of things that people used to think were magic were just science, okay? So a lot of things, the difference between how we categorize it is our level of intelligence, our level of study and education as it pertains to that particular subject. Okay, so moving on. Aliens are fallen angels. The very nature of angels is tied to heaven. Am I rereading? Let's see. No, it's not. Okay. When Lucifer and his delegation of rebellious angels were kicked out of heaven, their access to the third and high... I already read this. I'm sorry. Okay. I'm reading from the book, and I got ahead of myself by giving you guys that demonstration. Okay, next paragraph. UFOs literally mean unidentified flying objects. These are interdimensional vehicles through which extraterrestrials travel. They are an example of fallen or fallen angel technology. Now, we're going to be talking about fallen technology tomorrow, but we're laying the groundwork. We've already talked about some of this with the Nephilim. We talked about some of this a little bit with as it pertains to portals and things like that and traveling to different realms last night when we talked about fairies and elves and so forth and so on. And now we're going to touch on it a little bit more with UFOs, okay? These, however, are not to be confused with earthly UFOs, which would be military vehicles or flight machines, if you will, that are merely unidentified to local citizens, okay? But the military knows exactly what they are, okay? So it's a UFO to you, but it's not a UFO to the government. It's not a UFO to the military. We're not talking about those, okay? We're talking about legitimate. The government doesn't even know what this is, or the government knows we know what this is, and this is not one of ours. This is not Russian. This is not Ukrainian, whatever. This is something from another world. And it's funny because when I asked this question, my cousin Johnny was saying, you know, he used to think, you know, one thing about aliens until he started doing some research, and he realized what a lot of people are starting to state as it pertains to aliens. These creatures are not traveling from a different part of the universe, as was previously thought. They are traveling from a different dimension. Okay, so fourth dimension to third to second, however you want to word that. They're from a completely different dimension altogether. They're not just on a it's okay, how do I explain this? They're not coming from California to New York, okay? They're coming from a whole other country, so to speak, okay? They coming from Russia, from Mongolia, or somewhere obscure like that. Like, so maybe that wasn't the best example, but it's a completely other dimension. It is not the dimension that everything in the universe dwells in, okay? Which further proves the point. These are not just aliens. These are not Martians. These are not Plutoans, whatever you would call someone who lives from a different planet. These are not people who live on a different planet, okay? Those would be aliens if they did exist, but there's no proof as of yet that other beings, intelligent beings, exist on other planets as of yet, okay? So yeah, moving on. What is the purpose of aliens and UFOs? The number one purpose of aliens and UFOs is deception. Deception, okay? Overarchingly, I believe this is their purpose. They are a type of angel of light. Okay, what does the Bible say about this? 2 Corinthians 11:13-15. For such are false apostles, deceitful workers, transforming themselves into apostles of Christ. And no wonder, for Satan himself transforms himself into an angel of light. Therefore, it is no great thing if his ministers also transform themselves into ministers of righteousness, whose end will be according to their works. Okay, now Paul is comparing earthly beings, or earthly beings to unearthly beings or otherworldly beings, okay? Basically what he's saying is these creatures can shapeshift. Just like you can deceitfully shift your character and your appearance and how you want people to see you in order to deceive them, ministers, fivefold ministers, so can an angel that is fallen shape-shift its appearance. There's something in Celtic mythology, druidry, however you want to word that, it's called a glamour. Now, in 2019, we think glamour has to do with makeup. Glamour is actually, I don't want to say spell necessarily, but it's making yourself more beautiful. It could be making yourself taller, a little bit like Gandalf did. And you guys remember in the first Lord of the Rings movie, when Gandalf is at Bilbo's house and Bilbo is like starting to spaz out. He's manifesting, okay, because he's got this ring and he thinks Gandalf wants to steal it from him, so he's getting a little snippy, and Gandalf makes himself taller. Bilbo Baggins, and he starts yelling, "I'm not trying to rob you." Okay, that's my Gandalf impression, you guys. It's pretty terrible. But he made himself taller. Some witches could make themselves more beautiful than they actually were. It's called a glamour. It's not a glamour shot. It's not makeup necessarily, okay? It is magic that makes you appear a certain way, okay? So whether it's that context, whether it's actually shifting form, the Bible says that angels can appear as strangers. So you have to be careful how you entertain strangers, because you may be entertaining angels unawares, okay? So that is the same thing for God's angels as it is for fallen angels, okay? Spiritual laws, spiritual principles remain the same. They are neutral. They can be used by both sides, both kingdoms. Kingdom of light, kingdom of darkness, okay? Because Genesis 11, God says, let us come down and see this tower or this ziggurat that these people have built, in the plain of Shinar in Babel. And so he comes down, Now we see a better depiction of this in Genesis 19, but I don't know if it's the chapter immediately before, or maybe 2 chapters before that, where the pre-incarnate Jesus, or the theophany of Christ, comes with 2 angels to Abraham's tent, has dinner with him, tells Sarah, in 1 year's time, you're going to have a baby, blah, 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 blah. Christ literally came, pre-incarnate Jesus Christ, the Messiah, the only begotten of the Father, came with 2 angels appearing as men. They ate food. They drank wine or whatever, and so they did that in human form. The angels, while Jesus stayed behind and allowed Abraham to intercede for his family members in Sodom and Gomorrah, he sent the angels to Sodom and Gomorrah to see what was going on. So angels can come down. God himself can come down, okay? And this is pre-John 1:14, the word become flesh, okay? So if they could do it, the devil can do it, and he will do it, okay? Fallen angels can do it, and they have done it, and they are doing it, and they will do it until the end of time, literally, and until they are thrown into the lake of fire and judgment, okay? So one form they can do that is in the form of an alien, okay? Moving forward. Fallen angels in the form of aliens are extremely deceptive no matter the mask they wear. These deceitful workers always have an agenda. University of Arizona professor Chris Impey stated both science and religion posit life as a special outcome of a vast and mostly inhospitable universe. He also went on to say that there is a rich middle ground for dialogue between the practitioners of astrobiology and those who seek to understand the meaning of our existence in a biological universe. Tommaso Maccaro, the president of the Italian Institute of Astrophysics, also states, I ask myself what tools we will use in the next 400 years, and I ask what revolutions of understanding they'll bring about, like resolving the mystery of our apparent cosmic solitude. Very interesting. And let us not forget the warning of the Apostle Paul in Galatians 1:8, which states, but if we or an angel from heaven preach any other gospel to you than what we have preached to you, let him be accursed. So if the Apostle Paul is telling you that there can be an angel from heaven who preaches another gospel, that is one manifestation of an alien. Absolutely. The Bible says in Revelation 14:6 that angels can preach the everlasting gospel. So if that's what the holy angels are going to do during the tribulation, what do you think a fallen angel can do now or during the tribulation? Okay? They can preach a false gospel, a doctrine of devils, a seducing gospel, okay? Something that will deal with your itching ears, or that I should say cater to your itching ears. That is what these alien creatures will speak to you, okay? Let's see. There's no reason for us to believe that fallen angels, extraterrestrials by nature, would not at least attempt to present humanity with pseudo-revelations that are contrary to the written word of God. I'm also reminded, I already read this to you. Let's see. I believe this passage means that fallen angels can take on various forms intentionally for the sake of deceiving individuals as well as the masses. And I believe that the image of an alien, whether it's reptilian, Nordic, or Pleiadian, or Greys are like the ET type creatures. These are just three of the masses seem to be the primary manifestations of aliens, okay, of fallen angels as aliens. Okay, moving on. Corruption and reproduction is the next purpose of aliens. The phrases corruption and reproduction may seem diametrically opposed, but it is, as is the case of the Old Testament Nephilim, these phrases are inextricably connected when discussing the subject of aliens and UFOs. As it was in the days of Noah, so it will be in the days of the coming of the Son of Man. Just as there were Nephilim in the pre- and early post-flood world, so the Nephilim will rise again, God help us, okay? The instigators will be the same fallen angels, but this time in the form of aliens. They're not coming down as gods. Isn't that happening now, Tona asks? It is very possible. I haven't seen one. Hopefully none of y'all have seen one. But that doesn't mean someone somewhere hasn't seen one, okay? And if you guys go back to Tuesday's teaching on the Nephilim, I broke down 5 different types of Nephilim that I believe are going to be on the rise, that are here or will be here, okay? And that's old school, so that's Genesis 6:1-4, the sons of God physically going into the daughters of men and giving birth to this new race of Nephilim. Same-sex marriage offspring, where they're bringing together the DNA of 2 men and creating a human, or 2 women, and that means this child doesn't have DNA from a woman, okay? It only has DNA from 2 men. It could be, it only has DNA from 2 women and no DNA from a man. Consider polyamory, okay? It could have whatever grouping you have, 3 women and 2 men. If they say we want 1 baby, I believe that will be the next step, okay? They're already trying to do these things, okay? So old school, same sex. The next one I think is, what is the next one? One of them is scientific. So, or manimals, that's the next one, okay? So even Japan is actually doing this now, where they're combining like monkey DNA with human DNA and creating successful embryos. And this has been going on for a while, okay? They're combining animal DNA and human DNA. They're combining insect DNA, such as injecting spiderweb DNA into human skin. Why, you ask, would they do that? So you can create bulletproof skin, so you can have super soldiers. Why would they try and grow human organs in a sheep, so people who are on the transplant list can actually have viable options? Because sheeps could have livers that are the same size as a human, because pigs are very close to the organs and makeup, I guess, of humans. So they're creating these manimals and some of that may not be as horrible as the others, but when you start about talking, mixing monkey DNA and human DNA, which proves that we are not the same species and did not come from the same species, mixing insect DNA, maybe reptilian DNA with human DNA, this is totally demonic, okay? So old school, same sex, manimals, then you have, I feel like I'm missing one. You have robotics, okay? So the movement to create robots that can learn and think. So if you guys have watched Black Mirror, if you watched Extant, that's on Amazon Prime now with Halle Berry, that is actually a fascinating show. I actually really loved it. I hate that they didn't continue it. Let's see, that one actually has humanoids, in the sense of like hybrids that are like part alien, part human, whatever, that were spawned from Halle Berry. She got a virus and suddenly became pregnant when she was an astronaut in space by herself, okay? And then breeded these aliens that look just like her. So they all had like this skin color, even though they all looked like different people. You know, they all had like the DNA of Halle Berry, okay? And like, or Halle Berry's character. And then also this alien DNA that made them sort of like superhumans. And then you also had the humanics, which were robots that looked identical to human beings, but they were robots. They spoke, they thought, all of that. They learned, they comprehended like humans, okay? So that show has a lot of everything going on in it, but it's on Amazon Prime. The brand new show on NBC, Emergence, which I've been keeping up with, you have the little girl who is a robot. She gets sick. The doctors can't even detect that she is a robot. And they say, upload this thingamajig to her hard drive in her wrist and she'll get healed. What? What now? Okay. So, I mean, we've been conditioned to this for a while. Marvel has been conditioning us to this. And then, of course, we have like the UFO phenomenon, which will include, I think, a combination of like the old school intercourse and rape and all that. And then the actual extraction of DNA and, in vitro fertilization, different things like that. Buffy, you said, I always say, let them recreate dirt. Ha! They can't. Satan is not a creator. He is only an imitator and a mimicker. I don't know if that's a word. A copycat, okay? He can pervert, he can corrupt, but he cannot create, okay? That's why he needed the existing fallen angels and he needed the existing human race to create a third race of Nephilim. Okay, so, but that is some possible types of Nephilim that if they are not here, I think at some point they will be. Then there's even the possibility of what we can call the transhuman. Marvel has actually illustrated this well. Very well, a little too well. And I love Marvel. I'm not knocking Marvel. I saw Endgame recently. Finally, I cried through so much of it. You guys, I'm such a crier. I cry at everything. Okay. But there are a lot of different types of Nephilim, and I try to categorize them and actually mention like 9 or 10 of them actually in the Otherworldly book, just to give you guys some pop culture examples, because who doesn't watch pop culture movies and TV shows and things like that. But they're transhuman. So what do I say transhuman? Peter Parker. Fully human, but he gets bitten by a genetically engineered spider and he's been transitioned or transformed, as the Bible says, into a human with spidey senses, okay? Hulk. Is sort of an interesting combination. I believe his father injected himself with some sort of concoction and then went into his wife and knew her in a biblical sense, and she gave birth to the Hulk. I forget his real name. And he can transform into the Hulk, or he can be human, and if you guys saw Endgame, he can kind of control his transformation. What else? Who's another transhuman? Captain America. He's a super soldier. Yeah, they made him patriotic in the movies, but that is problematic, people. If you create something that is more powerful than a human, you have created something that can destroy humans. How many X-Men movies and Marvel movies do we need to watch, okay, to understand this concept? What else? Who else is a transhuman? The Mantis girl. She's a transhuman. There were side effects from her pregnancy with the alien, whatever, and she gained superpowers that way. Now, I'm not saying all of these ways are possible, but I think that there will be possible ways to transform a human into something else. Actually, L.A. Marzulli, and I'm probably getting ahead of myself in my content, but L.A. Marzulli, in his mindset as it pertains to the tribulation, he thinks it's going to be like an alien conspiracy, and he thinks that it is possible that, and this is based on actual legitimate evidence that he has of people who have legitimately had interactions, I'll say, with extraterrestrials, and they've had some sort of chip or something implanted in them, and when the same doctor extracted them, LA said, what is this chip doing to the people? And you can tell that they've been like trying to modify the chip, because some of them come apart more easily than others, and when the doctor told him what they were doing, he said it's changing their DNA. So L.A. Marzulli proposes that it is possible that when the Bible says during the tribulation that men will seek death and not find it, this could be one explanation for how that comes to pass. It's not that you're necessarily trying to kill yourself and you're not able to succeed, although that will very likely happen. It could be, think about how long the people lived in the Old Testament. In Genesis 6:3, the Lord cuts down the lifespan of man from living 900 years, 800 years to 120 years. It took them a long time it took them several generations after the flood to actually cut down to living around 100 years, give or take. And then again in the book of Psalms, we see you live 70 years by reason of strength, 80. Now, through health and wise decisions and being in Jesus, we figured out how to live a little bit longer, and my grandmother passed away when she was 108, and so we're figuring out how to make healthy, wise decisions. But people lived longer. They lived 400, 500, 600, 700 years. And so did the Nephilim. They say that, and I taught on this, I think last night at some point. It was earlier. I don't remember which teaching it was. But I mentioned that according to Jewish tradition, Orpah, the daughter-in-law of Naomi, the Bible says she went back to her people and her gods. Meanwhile, we know the story of Ruth. She clung to Naomi and Naomi's God, and she became the great-grandmother of David. But Jewish tradition states that Orpah went back to her people and her gods and married Gath, who is the father of Goliath. So she was married to a Nephilim and gave birth to 5 Nephilim sons, Goliath and his 4 brothers, who David and his mighty men took out. Okay? And you would say, well, how is that possible? Because they had a different lifespan than we had. So if an alien with a deceptive motive can figure out how to insert a chip, mark of the beast, that's what L.A. Marzulli thinks it is. It can extend your life to where you want to die, but you're not going to live a normal human lifespan because you are no longer completely human, which would again make sense that everyone who takes the mark of the beast cannot be saved. Because if you are no longer human and you're Nephilim, then you go right back to the Old Testament where God is saying, kill everybody. Kill everyone, even the animals. Kill everyone in Jericho. Every single tribe, you see God tell the Israelites to kill every single one of them, including the children and the animals. It's a Nephilim tribe. Notice God doesn't say that about the other tribes, except for the Amalekites, and that was because of their great evil and how they specifically tried to pick off the Israelites and attack them when they were weak and weary. God said there will be war between me and Amalek. And then even the king of Amalek, Agag, who Saul was supposed to kill and did not, so Samuel had to do it for him, his descendant was Haman the Agagite, who again tried to kill the Jews in the days of Esther. Okay? So God knows what he's talking about when he tells you to kill everybody. Okay? So don't cry, don't be sad because they weren't human. Okay? Other than the Amalekites, they weren't human. Okay? And the Amalekites were deeply anti-Semitic. Hey Daniel, welcome to you guys coming on. Please share this. Share. Okay? Moving forward. Okay, so I do believe there will be some instances of the old-fashioned production of Nephilim sexual intercourse. For instance, I personally believe that the Antichrist will likely be a Nephil, that's the singular of Nephilim, and the greatest mighty man, or Geborim, born of a woman ever to walk the earth. However, as we are in the age of genetic modification, I believe that this is the primary method that will be utilized to produce these nouveau Nephilim. Many of the new Nephilim will be born in the laboratories of demonically influenced scientists. Again, see the experiments in the hybrid embryos that are being created in the labs in Japan. Furthermore, I believe these new Nephilim will further replicate what we see so prominently throughout the ancient mythologies of the world, half divine and half man, as well as half animal and half man. Again, when you see something in civilization after civilization and culture after culture, it is a universal story or concept because it comes from a universal truth. In this case, I believe the fallen angels did a whole lot more than just mess with human beings. They were perverted. They were sick. Okay? Daniel, you said that makes so much sense. I always wondered about the verse about killing women and children. Glad I could clarify that for you. Okay, so let's see. Stem cell biologist Hiromitsu Nakawachi has been waiting for this moment for more than a decade. After years of planning, the persistent researcher has at last received approval from a government willing to pursue one of the most controversial scientific studies there is: human-animal embryo experiments. While many countries around the world have restricted, defunded, or outright banned these ethically fraught practices, Japan has now officially lifted the lid on this proverbial Pandora's box. Earlier this year, the country made it legal to not only transplant hybrid embryos into surrogate animals, but also to bring them to term. And this is from an article called "Japan Approves Groundbreaking Experiment Bringing Human-Animal Hybrids to Term." Another one on the same subject says a team of researchers from Stanford University has produced the latest results in controversial practice of growing a hybrid species, this time by merging a sheep embryo with human stem cells. The sheep-human hybrid experiment followed the pioneering creation of a pig-human hybrid by a team at the University of California, Davis back in 2016. The UC Davis research was originally undertaken to determine whether or not human organs could be grown in another species. The Stanford team chose sheep for the experiment because the animal's organs are roughly the same size as a human's. Therefore, in vitro fertilization would be easier with sheep than pigs. Once grown, the human organs could then be used for the transplantation purposes and could present a solution to the gap between supply and demand for organ transplants around the world. So the two core reasons we're going to see some of these new breeds of Nephilim is because of medical and scientific advancements, and a lot of it is a desire to solve legitimate problems, but it's not a safe procedure, not in the sense that it could destroy something, although it could. Well, let's talk about the womb transplants, okay? We have already had the first baby successfully born via a womb transplant. Now, for a woman who's had to have a hysterectomy or, God forbid, was never even born with a womb, however that happens, and has been able to have the womb of another woman, that may seem wonderful. But if you are not saying, "Dear God in heaven, that is harrowing, and what people are going to do with this is terrifying," then you do not have discernment. Because they're going to try to place a womb inside of a woman. Now, again, a woman, a biological woman, which is the only kind of woman there is genetically engineered. God forbid, even if some fluke or freak of nature happened and she was not born with a womb or had to have a hysterectomy, she is still a woman. She is still designed to carry and gestate and deliver a child, okay? A man will never be that. Men do not have menstrual cycles, okay? Men do not have periods. Literally, like the other day this week, Yahoo Lifestyle was sharing a picture of a little baby with a little poster by his crazy mom saying, men can have periods too. The devil is a liar and so are all y'all. The baby doesn't know anything about this. This is the perversion of the parents, okay? And then the stupidity of Yahoo to allow this article to be posted on their website. But people are so punkish that they just let the LGBTQ community just walk all the way over them. Just let the trans community just walk all the way over them and hold them to ransom and say, if you don't agree with this, even though we are like a teeny tiny fraction of population, you are hateful, you are bigoted, you don't love people, and you need to go. It's totally demonic. Again, you go research how many people are actually gay or lesbian or bisexual. You go research how many people are actually transitioning, transsexual, or transgender. Because it's tiny. It's tiny. And they are ruling societies, cities, and states and nations. But that is a different topic for a different day. But I'm saying a woman is created to have a womb. A man is not. How is a man going to give birth? Is your brand new faux vagina going to allow you to deliver a child? Did they create a birth canal for you to deliver a child naturally like a real woman can? Okay? Or are you going to have a C-section? Is your center of gravity going to naturally shift like a woman's does as the baby grows inside of her? How are you going to supplement an umbilical cord that gives the child all the nutrients? Are you going to have to do surgery to try and attach a fake umbilical cord that you created? Like, how is this going to work? People are sick. And you can tell that a lot of, and this is not on the notes, but it's on the subject of demonic genetic modification. All genetic modification is not bad, but in this context, it's terrible, okay? I should say it's at least neutral. Like, I don't think you should pick out the color of your child's eyes, but that is not the same level as picking out the DNA that your child gets. Okay, we only want a child to have DNA from 2 men or 2 women or this grouping of people. Just perversion is just that. It is perverse. It is deep. It is dark. It is sick. Okay, but these men are just taking over. It's privilege. It's a whole other topic. We're not going to get into that, but it is a topic of privilege, and they're trying to take over things that are just not even possible. These men, I actually saw an episode of Chicago Med last night, and I've seen this on some other doctor's show, of these people who are transgender women, meaning they are biological men, and they start taking these meds to transition their hormones and things like that, and they start having heart problems. Your heart, your body was not created to be a gender other than what God made you. And it's literally like, keep taking the hormones or die. When you guys probably heard recently that there was a woman who had, and I shared this article from my profile, she had a graft of fish skin, tilapia skin to be exact, used to create a brand new vagina. Hey, you guys, coming on. And it is a transgender woman. So again, a biological man who's had a faux vagina created because the last doctor not only botched up the surgery, but most of the people who have these surgeries to transition from a man into a woman, the cavity closes and shrivels up. Because you're not supposed to have a vagina if you're a man. I'm sorry, guys, if that's creeping you out. But this genetic modification has just really gone off the deep end. You cannot tell me that people are being led of God, not the God that I know, not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. Not that one, okay? Not the Christ who was made flesh and died for our sins and rose on the 3rd day. Maybe another God. Maybe Baphomet, okay, maybe Jezebel, but not my God, okay? God of Scripture does not do that, okay? He does not influence people to do things that are deeply perverse and demonic, okay? So moving on, okay? Transhumanism, I already mentioned this, but transhumanism is the name of the game. Humans can become non-human and non-humans can become human, supposedly. Only they can't. But society has been becoming desensitized to this for much longer than we realize. Now, I'm not demonizing the Marvel franchise. I personally grew up on X-Men. I used to be Storm because, of course, and my best friend, Mikey Ferguson, was Wolverine, so I used to play X-Men on the playground and then play it in the street when I got home. So I love X-Men. I love Marvel. I've seen most of the movies and most of the shows, okay? So I'm not knocking Marvel, but I'm using them as an example, okay? They have several examples just from the Avengers alone of transhumans and various types of Nephilim. So I'm going to give you some, okay? We talked about Captain America. He is a human scientifically turned or transformed into a superhuman or a super soldier, okay? Spider-Man, we talked about him too. He is a transhuman, a human accidentally imbued with the abilities of a spider through a spider bite, and you guys know the spider was like genetically modified or something like that, okay? Mantis, who is a transhuman. She is a human woman who, through her copulation with her alien mate who possessed a human body at the time, conceived a hybrid child that caused her to take on superpowers due to pregnancy side effects, okay? Hulk, he is a transhuman, a human conceived by a human mother and a human father who performed an experiment on himself, then sired the child immediately after the experiment, and gave birth to this child who has these super power abilities and the ability to shapeshift, okay? Hulk is a shapeshifter. Star-Lord, so this is the guy, Chris Pratt, from like Parks and Rec or whatever, okay? He is a Nephilim, the son of a human mother and an alien emperor. Loki, y'all know Loki, okay? A frost giant who resembles a human being in height and appearance. So a Nephilim who looks like you and me, okay? Nebula, this is a cyborg, and that is a being possessing both organic and biomechatronic body parts. Now, actually, I think cyborgs are the sci-fi version of like the Middle Eastern jinn. Okay, if you guys watch like Clash of the Titans or something, you saw the jinn and like they Jinn, and they like replaced different body parts that I guess were damaged or wounded or blown off, I don't know, with like what looked like tree trunks or something. Okay, so it's a combination of organic, human, whatever, and something else. Okay, I need to drink water. Jax the Destroyer, an artificial body possessed by the spirit of other beings. First, the spirit of a dead human being, then temporarily by the spirit of an alien entity. Then you have Vision, and Vision is an android, not a phone, but a robot, or artificial being created to house the brain patterns and intelligence of another being. Okay, so those are just examples from Marvel, from the Endgames, from the Avengers, okay? There are several more examples. Think about the X-Men, the different types of mutants. These are different types of Nephilim and or transhumans from pop culture, okay? So like I said, we've been being desensitized to this for a long time, okay? For a long time. And people are really sick enough to try and create some of these creatures, okay? To try and create something, like it's gonna be like Dr. Victor Frankenstein. You know, the monster isn't Frankenstein, the doctor who created the monster is Frankenstein. I don't know what the monster's name was, okay? But you're gonna create a Frankenstein, and it's not gonna behave as well as Frankenstein's monster did, okay? That is what these doctors are doing, driven by these demonic motives. You're going to create something you think you can control, but you cannot. You cannot control it, okay? Moving on. Now again, this is just the example of presentations of popular media franchise that has been with us for decades. I am not saying I think frost giants will take over the earth. I'm not saying that alien would-be deities such as Thanos are going to try and disintegrate half of the human population in a moment. I am also not saying that I think cyborgs are going to roam the universe, okay? I'm just using these. Yeah, you'll never look at Marvel the same. I mean, enjoy it, okay? That is one thing. I'm not trying to rob you guys of enjoyment. I said this when we talked about giants. Like, enjoy your giant rumble muffin from the Chronicles of Narnia or the Roald Dahl's The BFG. You know, you can still read that to your kids. You know, enjoy. I still am going to write fairy tales. Okay, I'm still going to read them. I'm still going to watch them. You know, so you don't have to let it enjoy your literary enjoyment, or let it destroy your literary enjoyment. You don't have to let it destroy your entertainment, as long as it's not like a demonic thing like the Golden Compass, where the main character literally has like a familiar demon as her little pet. Okay, that's crossing the line. Unless you're talking about like the book series, like spirit animals. I don't need to tell y'all what a spirit animal is. It's a familiar, okay? So that's crossing the line, okay? But I don't, the story is true within the context of the story. Obviously, we do not live in the Marvel universe, okay? We do not have X-Men walking around, okay? And I'm going to tell you what Mr. Beaver said from The Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe from the Chronicles of Narnia. And I'm going to paraphrase, okay? Basically, if you see something that is pretending to be human and isn't, that used to be human and is not, or that, is anyway trying to deceive you into thinking it's a human, you feel for your hatchet, okay? In essence, he was talking about the White Witch Jadis, who is pretending to be a human, and that was her claim to the throne of Narnia, okay? Again, I'm just using literary examples, people. Narnia is not real. Mr. Beaver is not real. Beavers do not currently talk on the earth, okay? I do think animals talked in the Garden of Eden, but that's a different subject for a different day, okay? But he's basically saying, if it's pretending to be a human and it's not, if it looks like a human and it's not, if it used to be a human and it's not, kill it. That's what he's saying. So these embryos, kill it, destroy it, ruin it, okay? Better yet, never let it come into existence to begin with. Better yet, don't be dabbling around in a science lab trying to create these perverse humans or these perverse beings, because they're not human, okay? They are not human. So the next purpose we're talking about, the purpose of the Nephilim, so we talked about deception, we talked about corruption and reproduction, now we're talking about fear-mongering. The final and major reason for aliens that we will be discussing is fear-mongering. That's causing fear, okay? Paired with the other two goals, the alien phenomenon will strike fear in the hearts of many, and increasingly so as the last days draw nigh. Unidentified objects flying through the sky, apparitions appearing out of nowhere, sleep paralysis, alleged abductions, strange occurrences taking place, blah, 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 blah. If you believe in aliens and UFOs, even if you don't think you do now, then these experiences can prove terrifying. Indeed, I believe this alien deception will be one reason that men's hearts will fail them for fear, as Luke 21:26 says, okay? And that verse says, men's hearts failing them from fear and the expectation of those things which are coming on the earth. Now, there's a whole lot of reasons for men to fear during the tribulation, but I think this will be one of them, okay? That's just Desiree Michelle Mondesir. The Bible doesn't say that. That's just my preference and my inference, okay? Based with other prophecies that Jesus made and different things like that, okay? So now we're going to do a little comparison and contrast between fairies and elves and the extraterrestrials, okay? If you research the UFO phenomenon as well as the fairy phenomenon, and there are little documentaries on fairies on YouTube, I've watched them multiple times, okay? You will find many similarities. You may suspect by now that I believe the reason for this is that the same kingdom is behind both myths, okay? Before we discuss these similarities, this may be a good time to describe the difference between the terms myth, lore, and legend, okay? So a lot of times people can use these interchangeably, but these are not interchangeable terms, okay? A myth is, and this is Merriam-Webster's definition. A myth is a traditional story, especially one concerning the early history of a people or explaining a natural or social phenomenon, and typically involving supernatural beings or events. Actually, that's lexico.com, which is from Oxford Dictionaries. It is also a usually traditional story of ostensibly historical events that serves to unfold part of the worldview of a people or explain a practice, belief, or a natural phenomenon. And that is from Merriam-Webster.com. Okay, next, lore or folklore, if you will. A body of traditions and knowledge on a subject held by a particular group, typically passed down from person to person by word of mouth. Next, legend. A story coming down from the past, especially one popularly regarded as historical, although not verifiable. A traditional story sometimes popularly regarded as historical, but again, not authenticated, okay? Now I'm going to describe fairy to you, the realm of fairy. So as I taught last night, there can be fairy beings or elves, but then there is the actual realm or plane, as they like to say in New Age, I should say, of fairy, okay? And so J.R.R. Tolkien, y'all know Tolkien, he gave us the Silmarillion, the Hobbit, the Lord of the Rings, Tales from the Perilous Realm, Father Christmas Letters, Smith of Wood Major. Can you tell? I'm a huge fan. I am, okay? He's my favorite, okay? So this is from his essay on fairy stories. And he says, the last two senses would obviously make my topic hopelessly vast, but the first sense is too narrow. Not too narrow for an essay, it is wide enough for many books, but too narrow to cover actual usage, especially so if we accept a lexicographer's definition of fairies, being supernatural beings of diminutive size, in popular belief supposed to possess magical powers and to have great influence for good or evil over the affairs of men. Supernatural is a dangerous and difficult word in any of its senses, looser or stricter, but to fairies it can hardly be applied unless super is taken merely as a superlative prefix, for it is man who is, in contrast to fairies, supernatural and often of diminutive stature, whereas they are natural, far more natural than he. Such is their doom. The road to fairyland, which is another synonym for fairy, F-A-E-R-I-E. The road to fairyland is not the road to heaven, nor even to hell, I believe, though some have held that it may lead thither indirectly by the devil's tithe. And here is a little bit of a poem that he quotes in his essay. And I think this is Scottish. O see ye not yon narrow road, so thick beset with thorns and briars? That is the path of righteousness, though after it but few inquires. See ye not yon braid road that lies across the lily leven? That is the path of wickedness, though some call it the road to heaven. And see ye not yon bonny road that winds about yon ferny brae? That is the road to fair Elfland, which is another synonym for fairyland or fairy, and where thou and I this night moan gay. Okay, again, that is got some Gaelic going on in it, and I do not speak Gaelic, okay? But basically, he's giving you his own description of fairy, okay? There are fairy beings themselves known by many names, as previously discussed, and then there is the actual realm of fairy or elfland or fairyland, which the fae or the fairies issue from. Tolkien is one of the foremost authorities on the realm of fairy, and he's most known for incorporating this realm in his books, The Hobbit, Lord of the Rings, Tales from the Perilous Realm, basically anything to do with Middle Earth, okay? But before proceeding, let's do a quick summary of my previously discussed terms. So this is Desiree's terminology. This isn't Merriam-Webster, this is me, okay? Myth. A myth is a traditional story explaining the origin of a people or natural phenomenon that specifically features divine beings, okay? So if there's no gods, quote unquote, or divine beings in it, it is not a myth. It's something else. It's not a myth, okay? So an example would be Egyptian or Greek or Roman, Celtic, Norse mythology, okay? Next, lore, also folklore, an oral tradition or body of knowledge passed or possessed by a certain people. And an example of this would be Jewish Kabbalah. I am not promoting Kabbalah, okay? Kabbalah is demonic, okay? But I wouldn't say that all lore is demonic, but Kabbalah is definitely demonic, okay? It's Jewish mysticism and all that, okay? Legend, a story about a person that is rooted in historical fact yet remains unverified. An exaggerated story that grew out of a truth, okay? The line is blurred between fact and fiction, similar to a tall tale. Example, the Arthurian legend. So you can read Thomas Malory or Tennyson's Le Mort d'Arthur. That's the death of Arthur in French. As well as The Once and Future King by T.H. White. I was highly unimpressed by that book, but that's just a very popular classical example of the story of King Arthur, okay? So Arthur was real, most believe, but there's a lot of question marks surrounding that, okay? Tall tale, a widely exaggerated story about a true person. Typically, no help is needed discerning fact from fiction. So an example would be John Henry, Paul Bunyan, Johnny Appleseed, Sally Ann Thunder Ann Whirlwind, some of those people, okay? fairy story, aka fairy tale, is a story containing elements from the realm of fairy, such as an elf, magic, or other impossible happenings. Example would be my favorite fairy tale of all time by Tolkien, of course, Smith of Wootton Major, and also Alice in Wonderland. That is a perfect example, and that's by Lewis Carroll, okay? So again, myth involves gods. Okay, gods or supernatural beings, maybe nymphs and naiads, dryads, hamadryads, whatever, okay? Lore is more so oral tradition in a body of knowledge possessed by a people, okay? Legend grew out of the truth, okay? Used to be true, then it got more exaggerated over time. Now, Irish history, if you read the history of Ireland, the actual book History of Ireland, it's very... you literally can't tell fact from fiction, okay? It's very gray, but it makes for wonderful reading, but that's true to the Irish storytelling style, okay? And then tall tales are just very exaggerated truths again, but it's so exaggerated, nobody needs to tell you what's true and what's not true, okay? And fairy stories are just stories pertaining to the fairy realm or stemming from the fairy realm, okay? So now that we've established these terminologies, let's move forward and talk about the actual similarities between the fairy phenomenon and the alien and UFO phenomenon, okay? First and foremost, sightings and visitations. Whether in the woodlands of Britannia, the rocks of Iceland, or the barren west of North America, sightings of alien spaceships or fairies or even the gods have been reported time out of mind. These sightings are often in specific areas that correspond to the mythos of those particular beings. So again, I mentioned this last night. If you move certain boulders or things like that, fixtures, and try to move it or try and build on it, in Iceland, those people will fight you, okay? Not all of them, but there are still people who believe very firmly, no, the elves live here. This is where the people are, the rock people that from Frozen, you can't move this. These mythical beings live here and you're going to wreak havoc if you do that, okay? Marion, what is her name? Not Marion. What is that actress's name? I can't think of her name. She plays the American grandmother on Downton Abbey, the redhead. Shirley MacLaine, that's her name. Okay. Shirley MacLaine is a New Age witch. Yeah, I said it. She's a New Age witch. Don't believe me? Go to ShirleyMacLaine.com and find out for yourself. She actually was introduced to the occult through a widely reported on sighting of UFOs in Washington, D.C. in 1952. She was a teenager. She was there traveling with her family, and she saw this, and she developed an unholy fascination, and she now lives down kind of near Area 51 in those areas down there like Arizona, New Mexico, somewhere like that, where they are known to have a lot of those sightings, okay? So the two are very connected, and I actually believe that dabbling in the occult will leave you with similar repercussions as people who dabble into ufology. I'm not talking about studying it from a scientific standpoint. I'm talking about people who have had interactions with ETs and were open to it. I'm not talking about people who were taken advantage of. I'm talking about people who were in agreement, who were fascinated and chasing after it, okay? There are similar effects on those people. What do I mean by similar effects? I mean, a lot of people who've been in the occult, or maybe who have members of their family, ancestors who've been in the occult, it is very difficult for their eyes to be open to the glorious gospel. Okay, so there's usually, and I've seen this firsthand in someone I know, and it took me years to figure it out, but then I realized there is something occultic in your bloodline. This is why you literally, as long as I've known you, you cannot see the truth, and indeed you're turning away further and further and further away from the truth, okay? It's a demonic veil that is placed over your eyes, your spiritual eyes, and either you can get saved, but you can't grow past a certain point, or you will completely reject the gospel because it doesn't make sense to you, it's incomprehensible, or you hate it or something like that, okay? Very similar repercussions for people who dabble with ufology, okay? So moving forward, changelings. The next similarity is the concept of changelings. So the Celtic definition of a changeling, and you guys may have heard me talk about this before on one of the other nights, but a changeling, according to Celtic lore, is where a fairy will come. Like, let's just say I had a baby, and the fairy will come and switch my human baby for what looks like a fairy baby, but it looks just like my baby. So usually, like in the olden days when, I don't know, a Scottish or Britain or Irish or whatever family would see their baby is sick, or their baby is acting out of character, maybe a child or something like that, they'll say, that's a changeling. It's not, but that's what they thought. So usually, especially if it was an infant, they would take the sick infant and leave it at a place where they believe the fairies frequented, and hope that the fairies would take back their fairy child or their changeling and replace it with the human child. Obviously, this did not happen. Really, this was just a practice of child exposure. The child would die, but the parents were so entrenched in this belief system that they believed that their human child was happy and healthy with the fairies, even if they never saw them again, okay? So that is a changeling. But I like to use this as it pertains to another Jesus, because the Mormons have a Jesus. Ufology has a Jesus. Islam has a Jesus. You know, a lot of religions have a Jesus, but it's not the Jesus that's the only begotten of the Father. It might be Jesus. No, I'm joking, okay? But it's not Jesus. It's not the Christ that came in the flesh. It's not the Jesus who died on the cross. It's another Jesus. It's the Jesus that Jesus warned about. The false Christ, another Jesus, whatever, however you want to word that, okay? So I believe this concept applies in different ways and different layers, if you will. Okay, so you see this concept, and I believe that you can compare this to sort of the Nephilim deception, especially as it pertains to aliens and the Nordic or the Pleiadian manifestation. So Nordic is easier to understand. You know how the Norse people look. The Norwegians, Scandinavians, Icelanders, Greenlanders, people from the high German countries, Finland, you know, they look a certain way. Basically, think of the master race that Hitler was trying to create. That is the Nordic race. A lot of what he got was a combination of Teutonic mythology and lore and things like that, combined with ufology and the occult. He had a whole lot going on, okay? Very sinister. But that is basically the manifestation of this particular type of alien, if you will. They look like a human being, but they're stronger. They're kind of godlike or angelic-like, if you will. Superhuman strength. And there's actually a story that was on, some of you guys may have seen it, the story about two twin sisters. I forget their names. It may be in my notes somewhere. I can't remember if it's in this chapter or in another one. But basically, people don't know, like, are you human? Are you demon possessed? Or are you a Nephilim? Or are you a straight up fallen angel? Because these women exhibited superhuman strength. Like, they both raced across the highway, were both pummeled by cars, both bounced back up. One went to the hospital and sustained some injuries, but the other one was less severely injured, and then went and murdered someone who took her in. So it's like, how do you exhibit these traits? And they had that Nordic appearance of tall, blonde women, just very sinister, and apparently superhuman strength. They did not appear to be on any drugs or anything of the sort. It was just very disturbing, demonic occurrences. So there's been a lot of circulation and discussion as to what is the actual nature of these two particular women. Okay, and this happened in Britain. They were Swedish, but they were in Britain when this happened. Okay. Moving on. So that would be an example of a changeling. Basically, again, something that looks like a human but is not. That's a changeling, okay? So next you have the concept of portals. This is another similarity between fairyology, if you will, and ufology, okay? Fairy phenomenon, UFO phenomenon. Number one, portal, missing time. This is a very common similarity, okay? I'm going to read a little bit from a poem you may or may not be familiar with. It's by William Butler Yeats, or W.B. Yeats, The Stolen Child. He was an Irish poet, I believe. And it says, away with us he's going, the solemn-eyed. He'll hear no more the lowing of the calves on the warm hillside, or the kettle on the hob sing peace into his breast, or see the brown mice bob round and round the oatmeal chest. For he comes the human child, to the woods and waters wild, with the fairy hand in hand, for the world's more full of weeping than he can understand. It's actually a very beautiful poem. I have a book somewhere of Yeats's poems. I think the Celtic singer Lorraine McKennitt actually put this to music. But that's, again, an example of a changeling, but it's also, I used it to demonstrate the concept of missing time. Now, this kid, the stolen child, if you will, has had all his time stolen, okay? Because he this is the final stanza of the poem, and he decides to go follow the fairies into fairyland or elfland and leaves the world as we know it, okay? Let's see. Smith of Wootton Major, I finally get to quote it. It has a great example about the main character, Smith. And it says, from time to time, he would go off, sometimes walking, sometimes riding, and it was generally supposed that it was on business. And sometimes it was, and sometimes it was not. At any rate, not to get orders for work or to buy pig iron and charcoal or other supplies, though he attended to such things with care and knew how to turn an honest penny into twopence, as the saying went. But he had business of its own kind in Fairy, and he was welcome there, for the star shone bright on his brow, and he was as safe as a mortal can be in that perilous country. The lesser evils avoided the star, and from the greater evils he was guarded. For that he was grateful, but he soon became wise and understood that the marvels of Fairy cannot be approached without danger, and that many of the evils cannot be challenged without weapons of power too great for any mortal to wield. He remained a learner and explorer, not a warrior, and though in time he could have forged weapons that in his own world would have had power enough to become the matter of great tales and be worth a king's ransom, he knew that in Fairy they would have been of small account. So among all the things that he made, it is not remembered that he ever forged a sword or a spear or an arrowhead. If you guys haven't figured it out, Smith is a blacksmith or a metal worker, if you will. Okay, in Fairy, at first he walked for the most part quietly among the lesser folk and the gentler creatures in the woods and meads of fair valleys, and by the bright waters, in which at night strange stars shone, and at dawn the gleaming peaks of fair mountains were mirrored. Some of his briefer visits he spent looking only at one tree or one flower, but later, in longer journeys, he had seen things of both beauty and terror that he could not clearly remember nor report to his friends, though he knew that they dwelt deep in his heart. But some things he did not forget, and they remained in his mind as wonders and mysteries that he often recalled. Again, this is my favorite fairy tale ever. It's by Tolkien. It's called Smith of Wootton Major, and basically it's a story of a little boy who grew up into a blacksmith who has comings and goings in and out of Fairy. Sometimes he goes away to travel on business, and other times he goes and travels into Fairy. Hey, Rashila. Welcome, welcome, welcome. We got San Diego in the house. So basically, if you haven't figured it out, the concept of missing time is just that. Pretty self-explanatory. You miss time. You miss human time, earthly time, in this realm as we know it. So if you were a Celt, a Briton, Briton, if you were, I don't know, someone from one of the 7 Celtic nations, or in one of the Germanic countries, you know, you would go somewhere that was known to be a portal, okay? Known to be a place where the fairies or the elves would frequent, and you could slip into their realm unbeknownst to yourself. You could walk and walk and walk, and next thing you know, you'd be in the realm of fairy or elfland. There's a beautiful poem, probably my favorite poem ever, by Alfred Lord Tennyson, and it's called The Horns of Elfland Blowing. It's gorgeous. Go look it up. But anywho, you walk into this other realm, supposedly, okay? This is just what they said. This is not actual truth necessarily, okay? You would walk into that place and you would spend, 7 days in Elfland, okay? And then you come back to our world and you realize you missed 7 years. Because time in other realms goes differently than it does in our realm. Time throughout the universe, it may move differently throughout the universe, but it moves, okay? But time is assigned to the universe, okay? There is no time outside of the universe because God dwells outside of time. Time is a construct, or even, if you will, assimilation for this realm, okay? So supposedly in fairy, time moves differently. It moves a little more slowly, and you have no idea that while you think it's only 7 days or 7 hours, maybe 7 days or 7 years have gone on outside of that realm, okay? And so you hear similar stories from the fairy stories from hundreds of years ago, or maybe even thousands of years ago, to, compare with the alien stories, if you will, the alien abductions, okay? If you guys are familiar with Outlander, you know that she passes through the stones and actually goes back in time, okay? So there are these different sort of Celtic ideas of how you can move into a different realm or a different time, or just travel, if you will. So she's in Scotland in like the 1700s, but she's from like the 1940s, okay? And so you're missing time, and you literally see, like, fast forward to her husband who's in the 1940s looking for his wife, thinking she's been stolen or kidnapped or something like that, but she's in the 1700s, okay? So it's these various ideas, variations, if you will, of missing time or slipping from one time into another, from one realm into another, and time is passing in the realm as we know it, okay? PBS conducted an interview with Harvard psychiatrist John Mack. In it, he was asked, "Tell us, please, how literally you intend people to take this. Are you suggesting people are really being snatched from their beds by aliens and experiments on board a spaceship?" To which he answers, "Just how literally to take this is one of the most interesting and complex aspects of this." And I want to walk through that as clearly as I can. There are aspects of this which I believe we are justified in taking quite literally. That is, UFOs are in fact observed, filmed on camera at the same time that people are having their abduction experiences. People, in fact, have been observed to be missing at the time that they are reporting their abduction experiences. They return from their experiences with cuts, ulcers on their bodies, triangular lesions, which followed the distribution of the experiences that they recover of what was done to them in the craft by the surgical-like activity of these beings. All of that has a literal physical aspect and is experienced and reported with appropriate feeling by the abductees, with or without hypnosis or relaxation exercise. There is, I believe, a gradation of experiences that go from the most literal physical kind of hurts, wounds, person removed, spacecraft that can be photographed, to experiences that are more psychological, spiritual, involve the extension of consciousness. The difficulty for our society and for our mentality is we have a kind of either or mentality. It's either literally physical or it's the spiritual other realm, the unseen realm. What we seem to have no place for, or what we have lost place for, are phenomena that can begin in the unseen realm and cross over and manifest and show up in our literal physical world. So the simple answer would be yes, it's both. It's both literally, physically happening to a degree, and it's also some kind of psychological, spiritual experience occurring and originating perhaps in another dimension. And so the phenomenon stretches us, or it asks us to stretch to open to realities that are not simply the literal physical world, but to extend to the possibility that there are other unseen realities from which our consciousness, our, if you will, learning process over the past several hundred years have closed us off. So this is on PBS, y'all. PBS.org. This is a legitimate psychiatrist. I don't know if he's a believer, probably not. This is a legitimate professional in the psychiatrist industry saying, yes, this is happening. OMG. Okay? Now, we've said a lot about science. We've read a lot of articles. We've read a lot of lore, and that's great. But now, let's turn to the book of Ezekiel, okay? Ezekiel 8, 1 through 4. And it came to pass in the 6th year, in the 6th month, on the 5th day of the month, as I sat in my house with the elders of Judah sitting before me, that the hand of the Lord God fell upon me there. Then I looked, and there was a likeness, like the appearance of fire, from the appearance of his waist downward fire, and from his waist upward like the appearance of brightness, like the color of amber. He stretched out the form of a hand, and took me by a lock of my hair, and the Spirit lifted me up between earth and heaven, and brought me in visions of God to Jerusalem, to the door of the north gate of the inner court, where the seat of the image of jealousy was, which provokes to jealousy. And behold, the glory of God of Israel was there, like the vision that I saw in the plain. Okay? And next we are reading Revelation 4, 1 and 2. After these things, then let me lay the groundwork. Y'all know the book of Revelation. It came to John on the Isle of Patmos while he was exiled from wherever he was. And he was in the Spirit on the Lord's day. And then the Lord released him to see a vision. So he's having open visions. Revelation 1 through 3. We know the 7 letters to the 7 angels of the 7 churches. Okay? But in chapter 4, this happens. After these things I looked, and behold, a door standing open in heaven, and the first voice which I heard was like a trumpet speaking with me, saying, Come up here, and I will show you things which must take place after this. Immediately, I was in the Spirit. It's in the Bible, y'all. It's in the Bible. Let's see. In fact, there are many such experiences recorded in Scripture that we cannot distinguish between one's spirit man traveling and one's whole person traveling, body, soul, and spirit. Because like both of those examples, Ezekiel, John, you're like, was it their spirits? Was it just that your spirit was conscious and your man was just driving along or being dragged along? Like, what happened? Because the Bible said in Ezekiel that Lord picked up Ezekiel by his hair. First of all, that sounds painful, but I guess he could handle it. And then John, who was in the Spirit on the Lord's day, watching a vision unfold before him, is no longer watching the vision. He's in the vision. He's in it, okay? Moving forward, so we're discussing right now, for those of you who are a little late to join us, and welcome. We're talking about similarities between the fairy realm and UFO phenomenon and fairy phenomenon, okay? So now we're specifically talking about the subject of portals, and we've been addressing the first subject, subsubject of that being missing time. So there are documented experiences where psychiatrists believe that this is happening. People are being abducted. There is literary backing for this concept throughout lore, throughout the world. And then we have biblical examples. Okay, next we're talking about the portal as it pertains to the time between times and the place between places. Okay, the article Mysterious Worlds travels to the fairy and shamanic realms says the elves and fairies of Scotland and Ireland, for example, would use certain magical doorways or stone circles, such as Stonehenge, in which to appear depending upon the time of year. Each magical doorway was associated with a particular season. So we literally just passed one. Y'all call it Halloween. The Celts call it Samhain. Samhain. Okay? Samhain. Another one would be the counterpart of Samhain, which is Beltane, which is May 1st. Some of you guys may be familiar with May Day. Okay? That is Beltane. Bel is the Scottish name for Baal. It is also the ancient Akkadian name for the god Baal. So that should tell you something about May Day. So don't you run around these cute little ribbons around these May Day poles. It's a phallic symbol, okay? It's demonic. It's full of sexual perversion. And then, of course, you have the darkness and the idea of Samhain, of the spirits coming from the other realm, familiar spirits coming back to their family members. It's the same thing in Mexico for the Day of the Dead, Dios de Muerte. I don't speak Spanish. Hopefully I said that right. It's the same concept of dead spirits coming back. You wear costumes to ward off evil spirits. You leave treats out for the dead loved ones, or even for, the wayfaring spirits that you may not be familiar with. There are sacrifices. Give us a treat, or we finna trick you. The Celtics, as well as the Germanic peoples, practice human sacrifice. If you watch Vikings, you see other forms of sacrifice, but they're very known for the bog people. And actually, it was in the remnants of a bog person, beautifully preserved because of what's in a bog, which could be like a marsh, if you will. People were ritually sacrificed and or placed in the bog, or maybe even drowned in a bog. And you can see what was in the contents of their stomach. And actually, in Thomas Cahill's book From the Hinges of History series, How the Irish Saved Civilization, excellent book, he actually proves that my Irish ancestors worshipped the Queen of Heaven, aka Babylon, because there were cakes, ritual cakes, still in the body of the bog people that were made to worship the Queen of Heaven. And the book is written by a secular man. He's not a believer. So he's not like, oh, I believe what the prophet Jeremiah said in chapter 7 and in chapter 44. Jeremiah said, y'all are making cakes to the Queen of Heaven. That's another topic for a different day. Same religion, okay? So basically, don't celebrate Halloween, don't celebrate May Day, okay? Totally demonic. But these are examples of holidays that took place between the equinoxes, okay? I always get the equinoxes and the solstices mixed up, if you will. But basically, that is what is taking place. They believe these times the veil between the worlds was thinner. It was thinner, or it was rent or opened, if you will, okay? So there are different types of time between times, and that is a concept, a Celtic concept, time between times, place between places. Oddly enough, I actually learned the term time between times from Lisa Bevere, but then I started researching it myself. So you have a time of day. There are different types of time between times. So the first one would be a time of day. So this is where it's not fully day and not fully night. So it can be twilight or dusk, if you will. So the time between night and dawn, as well as the time between twilight and evening fall, or actually twilight would be the word, okay? Time of season. So again, we talked about Samhain, or aka All Hallows Eve, aka Halloween, and that is halfway between the autumn equinox and winter solstice, and the Beltane, aka May Day, is halfway between the spring equinox and summer solstice. Any halfway point between an equinox and a solstice, or vice versa, would be a time between times to the Celtic peoples. Then you have a time between times that is a geographic location. Yes, I just said that. This is a place where the veil between the world realm, or earthly realm, and another realm is thin or thinner, or even non-existent at that particular point in time. This is a portal. These are all different types of portals. A geographic portal would be Jerusalem. Where did Daniel pray? He turned his face to pray toward Jerusalem, because that was their holy place. That was their portal. It was easier to get prayers from Jerusalem. What did God say to Solomon? To pray to me in this place. In all of the instructions surrounding this place, it was a portal. Go back further than that, you see the patriarch setting up monuments at Bethel, house of God. Jacob said, the Spirit of the Lord was in this place and I knew not. I didn't know it was a portal. And time after time, you see Abraham, Isaac, Jacob going back to the place of their fathers to worship and to have a visitation and to have an encounter, because it was a spiritual, a Holy Ghost time between time and place between places, where you could see Jacob's ladder. You could see the spiral ladder where the angels were ascending and the angels were descending and ascending. Okay, it was a portal. You could also, from a literary or mythical standpoint, Avalon, which is in modern day Glastonbury in England, Avalon is heavily associated with the king, the Arthurian legend and myths, if you will. Okay, that is supposedly a portal. I told you guys about that Druid Norse kid who was trying to go and visit Avalon. Probably not going to find it. Okay, just saying. Then you have a place that's like a demonic portal, which is like the Bermuda Triangle. Stuff goes there and it disappears. You could also think of the modern show Manifest on NBC, where they were flying in the plane and then immediately they went through a storm, heavy turbulence, and then they were fine. Only to realize that it's been 5 years when they land and they say, oh my God, how did you people land? Because we thought you were dead. We thought you were gone. They went through a portal or a wormhole or a black hole, okay? Again, just a pop culture example. Okay, so it must be understood that time is a false, or better yet, a temporal construct created for the universe and all who dwell in it. Genesis 1:14-19 says, Then God said, Let there be lights in the firmament of the heavens to divide the day from the night, and let them be for signs and seasons, and for days and years, and let them be for lights in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth. And it was so. Then God made 2 great lights, the greater light to rule the day, and the lesser night to rule the night. He made the stars also. God set them in the firmament of the heavens to give light on the earth, and to rule over the day and over the night, and to divide the light from the darkness. And God saw that it was good, so the evening and the morning were the 4th day. God created time for us. He don't need it. He does not dwell in it. Dr. Rennie McLean, Apostle Rennie McLean, states that time is the child of eternity. I always liken it to like a switchboard. Think back in like the 40s, or just like any movie from like World War II or before that, and you have the switchboard. Okay, you have the women sitting at the switchboard answering the calls that come in. So what do? They unplug the cord, if you will, the wire, and replug it to the extension of the person they're trying to reach. They're a switchboard operator. So the switchboard is time in this illustration. The switchboard operator is God, who can unplug you from one time and plug you in to another time. He can unplug you from one geographic location and replug you into a new geographic location whithersoever he will, however he wants to, in whatever way he chooses to, okay? And again, you can call this a tesseract, a black hole, whatever, but time can be manipulated, time can be bent, time can be folded, time can be wrinkled. Time is amazing, okay? Time can be shortened. That's what the Bible says, or hastened. 2 Peter 3:11-12. Therefore, since all these things will be dissolved, what manner of persons ought you to be in holy conduct and godliness, looking for and hastening the coming of the day of God? because of which the heavens will be dissolved, being on fire, and the elements will melt with fervent heat. Okay, so Peter said that you can hasten the coming of the day of the Lord. Revelation 12:12. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and sea, for the devil has come down to you, having great wrath, because he knows he has a short time. Amos 9:13. Behold, the days are coming, says the Lord, when the plowman shall overtake the reaper, and the treader of grapes him who sows the seed. Now the mountains shall drip with sweet wine, and the hills shall flow with it. What is that saying? The person who picks up the harvest is going to run over the person who's breaking up the fallow ground to put the seeds in. Okay, so how does the person who comes at the end overrun the person who's at the beginning? Okay, and it's the same thing with the context of the treader of grapes. Okay, you tread grapes to get grape juice and wine. So how is the person who's at the end overcoming the person, overtaking the person who actually sows the seed to grow the vines and have the grapes on them? It's an acceleration, so you can hasten time, you can accelerate time, you can also you can lengthen time. Your disobedience will lengthen your process. Yes, it will. Okay, boredom feels like it lengthens your process in whatever it is you're dealing with. It's funny how when you're doing something you love, time seems to pass quickly, but when you're doing something that's boring as heck, it seems to take forever. It's almost like, you know how they say, if you watch the clock, it's going to take forever. But if you get busy doing something else, time is going to go just like that. Time is very interesting. Time is definitely a portal. And I think I asked you guys that question, definitely from my profile. I'm not sure if I asked it from this page, but I asked you guys, do you think time is a portal? Most of y'all said yes. Very interesting. Time can be a portal. Let's see. Some other examples. Let's see. I reference John on the Isle of Patmos. We don't know how long he was out of the spirit, how long he was in heaven. We don't know how, I mean, think about the dreams you guys have had. We're going to talk about this a little more. Think about the dreams you've had, and it felt like you just had a saga. But when you look at the clock, it was only an hour, or maybe even 45 minutes or half an hour. But you literally dreamt a whole saga. How is that possible? I ask you, okay? Now we're going to look at Moses, okay? And I actually give the example of Enoch in Genesis 5:24. He walked into eternity. So something opened up, okay? God caused a hole for him to walk from the earth realm into heaven, out of the earth realm entirely, and just walk down into heaven. It says he walked with God and he was no more. Moving on, Moses, hidden in the cleft of the rock, somehow received revelation of the entire history of humanity up to that point, and it was recorded only in a 40-day period. How? Okay, so the Lord said to Moses, I will also do this thing that you have spoken, for you have found grace in my sight, and I know you by name. And he said, please show me your glory. Then he said, I will make all my goodness pass before you. I will proclaim the name of the Lord before you. I will be gracious to whom I will be gracious, and I will have compassion on whom I will have compassion. But he said, you cannot see my face, or no man shall see my face and live. No man shall see me and live. And the Lord said, here is a place by me, and you shall stand on the rock, and it shall be while my glory passes by, that I will put you in the cleft of the rock, and will cover you with my hand while I pass by. Then I will take away my hand, and you will see my back, but my face shall not be seen. And the Lord said to Moses, cut 2 tablets of stone, like the first ones, and I will write on these tablets the words that were on the first tablets, which you broke. Because he got a little upset, y'all, so he broke the 10 Commandments. Okay. So be ready in the morning and come up in the morning to Mount Sinai and present yourself to me there on the top of the mountain. So he wasn't just getting the 10 Commandments. He received the whole law. He received all of the information, because they say Moses wrote the Pentateuch. Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus, Deuteronomy, Moses wrote it. Okay? And it includes things that he said and different things like that, but it includes the whole history. He saw creation. We don't know how this happened, but he was able to have it downloaded all of the thousands of years in 40 days. Time is funky, y'all. Time is very funky. Okay, next part of portals, travel. If you have not figured it out yet, we've been discussing the subject of portals for some time. Black hole, wormhole, portal, time between times. It's the same concept, different names. This is traveling. And whether you're traveling through time, through space, or through both, when you encounter a portal, you will be traveling. It is my personal belief that angels travel through portals known as black holes or wormholes. The concept of a black hole is that you exit almost as soon as you enter. They being angels, they hearken to the voice of the word, and then unless there is demonic interference, as there was in Daniel 10, then the angels travel efficiently, speedily, and unimpeded. Okay, and again, I reference A Wrinkle in Time, and they call it A Wrinkle in Time or Folding Time. Star Trek is another pop culture example. They call it time warp, okay? Let's see, moving on. It's so funny how you can get ahead of yourself. Okay, so let's go back to this idea of the switchboard, how God can unplug you and replug you. So imagine if God unplugged Enoch in Genesis 5 and Elijah in 2 Kings 2 and replugged them in as the two witnesses in Revelation 11. Interesting. Enoch, who walked with God and was no more. Elijah, who was picked up by the heavenly state troopers in a fiery chariot and then replugged them back into the future in Revelation 11. That's cray-cray, okay? Consider if Moses, yeah, it does sound like The Matrix. I actually have not watched The Matrix, shockingly. Don't crucify me. I'm going to watch it one day. It's on Netflix. I'll watch it, okay? But yeah, it's cray-cray. And there are a lot of interesting, I don't even want to go into that, a lot of interesting things about The Matrix that I have heard, okay? So what if Moses' spirit was unplugged in Deuteronomy 34 and replugged into Matthew 17/Mark 9/Luke 9 for the transfiguration on top of the mountain where it was Moses, Jesus, and Elijah? Okay, interesting. What if he's going to unplug the church from this realm and replug us into heaven in the rapture for the marriage feast of the Lamb? Okay, a lot of interesting things to make you think here, okay? God can do whatever he wants. Time is his servant. Time must bow to the will of God, okay? I believe the enemy perverts and contorts and warps things, okay? But God can make it do whatever he wants to, okay? And it will be legal. If you travel in the spirit, in the soulish realm, if you travel through time, even if you will, if that's even possible to an unbeliever, outside of the will of God, it's demonic. If you astral project, it's demonic. But if God initiates it like he did with Enoch, with Elijah, with John, with Ezekiel, with pick a name, you know, that is spiritually legal. And God obviously has a purpose that is relevant to your purpose and his plan for your life. So we don't seek these things, but if God wants it to happen, then so be it, okay? So be it. Again, as it pertains to the concept of time, Christ died on the cross roughly 2,000 years ago. But then how does the Bible say he is the lamb slain before the foundation of the world? Time is funny. It is funny, y'all. Okay? Let's read some scripture. Colossians 1:19 and 20. For it pleased the Father that in him all the fullness should dwell, and by him to reconcile all things to himself, by him, whether things on the earth or things in heaven, having made peace through the blood of his cross. So it is truly the finished work of the cross, y'all. Chuck Missler points out that the artist Salvador Dali, I forget what it's called, but he has a very fascinating painting of the crucifixion of Christ. And instead of it being a regular cross, it is a cube. Actually, an unrolled cube. Different topic. But it's a cube. It's 4-dimensional. 3-dimensional? 3-dimensional. It is more dimensional. It's not a 2-dimensional painting, okay? It has another dimension. And what he is illustrating in that painting, by putting Jesus on a cubed cross as opposed to a 2-dimensional cross, is that what he did, it goes beyond time. Okay? It overtakes time. So his sacrifice goes all the way back to Genesis in the Garden of Eden. His sacrifice goes all the way forward to the end of humanity in the earth as we know it. And it includes the present. That is the power of God. What he did on the cross was finished for those who came before, those who were at that time, and for us who were, as the Bible says, afar off. Give God some glory, okay? That is just so phenomenal. So phenomenal. Okay, now we're looking at another creepy similarity between fairy stories and ufology, I'll say. And this is taking a twist, okay? A dark twist and turn, okay? That is sexual encounters. I'm sorry in advance, okay? So this is the final similarity we're going to be discussing, but unfortunately and quite disturbingly, this is a commonality we've seen between fairy and ufology. For obvious reasons, I am loath to make direct references to literature that specifically references the subject. I didn't feel released to do it, y'all. Not in this book. If you want some examples, go get my book, The Days of Noah Lot, which I see some of y'all picked up last night, okay? Go get it from Amazon. I just didn't feel released to go into it in this book, okay? Crap happens, okay? Let's see. Fairy stories for children will not typically have these themes, obviously, because they're children's stories. They're intended for a more innocent audience. However, if you delve into the more adult themed poetry, literature, books, films, art, it takes a decidedly sexually perverse, sexually immoral turn, okay? You also see this in ufology. And again, I'm recommending my book, The Days of Noah Lot, Uncovering the Perversions of the First and Last Days. You can also cautiously, being the operative word, cautiously research the subject yourself if being the bigger operative word, if the Holy Spirit permits you to do so, if he leads you to do so, okay? You really have to be led. If you do this research, you'll find several stories of women who were allegedly abducted, artificially inseminated by extraterrestrials, returned home only to then be re-abducted several weeks later and have the growing fetus extracted from their womb. For men, you'll find stories of intercourse, rape or otherwise, with female aliens, as well as the extraction of semen, okay? I even came across a claim of human abductees being forced to have sex with animals. I know, it's crazy, it's horrifying. I wouldn't blame you if you didn't believe it. But again, go back to what we see in the mythologies. Egyptian mythology, Sumerian, Mesopotamian mythology, Greek mythology, Roman mythology, basically all those original mythologies. I haven't really studied Hindu, anything Vedic beliefs, if you will. They probably had some crazy creatures too, okay? Hybridization, half human, half animal, half human, half bird, half human, half reptile, okay? It's creepy. It's creepy, y'all. So again, if you see a common thread, it's because there is a common truth, okay? Hopefully I'm not losing you guys, okay? But it's creepy. Creepy, creepy, creepy. So here are some examples, okay? A lot of the mythologies, I'm using the mythologies as an example, they include stories that have beings such as demigods, which are half god, half angel, as we know, and half human. Sirens are half woman on top and then half fish on bottom. Mermaids are male or female, okay? Sirens are specifically evil mermaids, okay? Gorgons, woman on the upper half, serpent on the bottom half. And Medusa was a Gorgon, and if you looked at her, her stare turned you to stone, okay? And she had the little snakes for her hair. Ew, totally gross, okay? Lamias, they have the appearance of a young woman that can shapeshift into a serpentine being, possibly with a woman's head, scaly body, 4 legs, and a tail, but some sort of reptilian creature. Harpies, the body of a man with the female body of a witch, and then the wings and claws of a bird. And by witch, I mean female witch, okay? Minotaurs, body of a man with the head and tail of a bull. Centaurs, human upper half, horse bottom. Satyrs and fauns. Satyrs are the Greek version, fauns are the Roman variant. Satyrs have the body of a man with the ears and tail of a horse. Fauns, on the other hand, the Greek version, have the bottom half of a goat and the ears and horns, or the horns and even possibly the head of a goat. So Pan would be an example of that. Baphomet is kind of like an androgynous version of that, okay? Sphinx. The Sphinx is the head of a human, possibly a human woman, the body of a lion, the wings of an eagle, and a serpent's tail, okay? This sounds eerily biblical, okay? Moving on, you see also hodgepodges of creatures amongst the pantheons of gods and mythology, and these are mostly Egyptian examples. So there's Ammit, a female demon that is part lion, hippopotamus, and crocodile. Anubis, a man with the head of a jackal. Bastet, who's the god that showed up in Black Panther. It is the Panther Principality. It is a principality. Yes, I said it. Okay. Bastet is a woman with the head of a cat. Sekhmet is a woman with the head of a lion. And then this is a Sumerian example. Lamassu, you guys have seen this before more than likely. This is a human head with the body of a bull or a lion and the wings of an eagle, sometimes portrayed as a woman. Sounds like the Assyrian or Sumerian or Mesopotamian version of a sphinx. Okay, I personally believe this is based on a creature you see in scripture, okay? Because it's a little bit too interesting, okay? Next, you see a lot of hybrids amongst just animals. So not like animal and man or animal and God or God and human, but animal with animal or some sort of beastly hybridization, okay? So cockatrice, this is actually in your King James Bible. It is the upper half of a rooster with the bottom of a serpent or dragon, and it spits fire. Griffin, the head, wings, and claws of an eagle with the body and tail of a lion. Hippocampi, a horse with the serpentine lower half, or the body of a serpent, lower half of a serpent. Manticore, the human head, the body of a lion, and a scorpion's tail. Again, that's similar a little bit to Lamassu and to Sphinx, interestingly enough. And Peritons, the head of a deer with the wings of an eagle. Fascinating. So I think that the fallen angels were like, let's just mess crap up. Like, let's just mix that with that. Let's destroy this. Let's corrupt this. Because why do they care? They don't obey the laws of God. They were those who stood in the presence of the Lord and still chose to follow Lucifer and rebel against God. They already created the Nephilim race. Why would they not create other types of hybrids? And I do think we'll see some of these creepy creatures again, okay? And some would say, well, those are just creatures of myth, but I propose that some may actually be demonic mockeries of that which is in heaven. If you don't believe me, turn to the book of Ezekiel chapter 1, verses 5 through 14, okay? Also from within, it came the likeness of 4 living creatures. And this is talking about near the wheel within a wheel, okay? And this was their appearance. They had the likeness of a man. Each one had 4 faces. Each one had 4 wings. Their legs were straight, and the soles of their feet were like the soles of calves' feet. They sparkled like the color of burnished bronze. The hands of a man were under the wings on their 4 sides, and each of the 4 faces had wings. Each of the 4 had faces and wings. Their wings touched one another. The creatures did not turn when they went, but each one went straight forward. As for the likeness of their faces, each had the face of a man. Each of the four had the face of a lion on the right side. Each of the four had the face of an ox on the left side. And each of the four had the face of an eagle. Thus were their faces. Their wings stretched upward. 2 wings of each one touched one another. 2 covered their bodies, and each one went straight forward. They went wherever the Spirit wanted to go, and they did not turn when they went. As for the likeness of the living creatures, their appearance was like the burning of coals of fire, like the appearance of torches going back and forth among the living creatures. The fire was bright, and out of the fire went lightning, and the living creatures ran back and forth in the appearance like a flash of lightning. Again, that is Ezekiel 1, verses 5 through 14. Now this is Daniel 7, verses 2 through 5 and 6 through 8. Or maybe that's 2 through 4. Okay, whatever. Daniel spoke, saying, I saw in my vision by night, and behold, the 4 winds of heaven were stirring up the great sea, and 4 great beasts came up from the sea, each different from the other. The first was like a lion and had eagle's wings. I watched till its wings were plucked off, and was lifted up from the earth and made to stand on 2 feet like a man, and a man's heart was given to it. Skipping down. After this I looked, and there was another, like a leopard, which had on its back 4 wings of a bird. The beast also had 4 heads, and dominion was given to it. After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words. Terrifying, okay? I think the one I didn't mention in verse 4 was, or verse 5 was a bear, I believe. But it wasn't a hybrid, so I didn't mention it. Okay. Revelation 4, verses 6 through 8. Before the throne there was a sea of glass like crystal, and in the midst of the throne and around the throne were 4 living creatures full of eyes, in front and in back. The first living creature was like a lion. The second living creature was like a calf. The third living creature had the face like a man, and the 4th living creature was like a flying eagle. The 4 living creatures, each having 6 wings, were full of eyes around and within. That sounds a little harrowing. I'm not going to call it creepy because it's in heaven, but harrowing nonetheless, okay? Next, Revelation 9, 7 through 10. The shape of the locust was like horses prepared for battle. On their heads were crowns of something like gold, and their faces were like the faces of men. They had hair like women's hair, and their teeth were like lions' teeth, and they had breastplates like the breastplates of iron, and the sound of their wings was like the sound of chariots, with many horses running into battle. They had tails like scorpions, and there were stings in their tails. Their power was to hurt men 5 months. Does not that sound like the definition of the manticore I gave you, and like the Sphinx? Very fascinating. Very fascinating. Fearsome creatures indeed. All save the ones mentioned in Daniel 7 are classifications of angels, or at least some type of heavenly beast. Remember, if there is a counterfeit, there is bound to be an authentic in heaven's realm, as creepy as that may be to us, okay? As harrowing, as fearsome, as awesome, as in awe-inspiring as that may be to us. And for those of you who may have read this last section and become confused, I am not trying to insinuate that God has caused various beings to couple together and create these hybrid-like beings, okay? That's not what I'm saying. I believe Lucifer has corrupted, because again, it's very possible that there were some of these creatures that rebelled with Lucifer. So they have become demonic principalities and rulers and spirits of the age and spiritual wickedness in heavenly places, okay? So that's very possible. It's very possible that he has tried to recreate some of them. he's tried to pull a Saruman from Lord of the Rings and try to recreate a new species and different species and just created something that's just horrifying, okay? So that is my teaching. Who has questions? I want you guys to start posting your questions. I'm actually going to go and see what questions you guys submitted on Facebook. Give me just a moment. And let me know if you guys have any, if you had any aha moments, if you learned something that you didn't, if you were that you didn't know before, if you've been able to connect the dots between things that you did not know were connected before. Let me know, and of course, I want to know your questions, so post them in the comments. And please share this if you haven't already. I think I got most of you guys' comments and questions from beforehand. And pardon my internet, it's a little bit slow on my desktop. I want to hear or see your questions, y'all, about aliens, extraterrestrials, about UFOs, otherworldly, unidentified flying objects. Okay. It's like you guys went to sleep. Hopefully I didn't put you to sleep. Hopefully. Ooh, and I am hungry, y'all. I hope you guys have some questions. I like answering you guys' questions. Okay. And pardon me while I'm going through this. There we go. Okay. I think I found them. Okay, so somebody asked, do you consider sentient extraterrestrials to be God's children like humans are? The answer would be no. First of all, forget extraterrestrials. Not even every human being is God's child. So that is a false teaching. I'm sure it's well intended, but it's a lie. Every human being is not a child of God. Every human being is a creation of God, okay? But only those who are believers, who are Christians, including Jews who believe in the Messiah being Jesus Christ, the only begotten of the Father, those are the only children of God. So by that definition, of course, the answer to his question would be absolutely not, okay? I'm going to read something from the book of John as soon as I find it. John 1, verse 12 and 13. But as many as received him, being Jesus, to them he gave power to become the sons of God, even to them that believe on his name, which were born not of blood, nor of the will of the flesh, nor of the will of man, but of God. So if you're walking in the Spirit of God, you are a son of God. And that is a concept, not a gender, okay? So if you are an extraterrestrial, you're not a son of God. The angels, even in heaven, are not sons of God. They are creations of God. They are servants. They're the serving caste, okay? We are sons, seated in Christ, in heavenly places, at the right hand of the Father. We have an inheritance. Angels do not have an inheritance, okay? So, no. Someone asked, do I believe they exist? Yes. Let's see what else. If we have any more. Someone said, I think when the rapture happens, they'll say we have been abducted by aliens. I'm laughing, but I'm serious. Somebody may say that, but honestly, we talked about a little bit the join between the occult and ufology. The what's the word? The combination is much deeper than you realize. Again, what Hitler was doing, it was based on Teutonic mythology and ufology and straight up occultic practices. You see a lot of this thread even when you watch like the Indiana Jones movies and the different things that they're trying to find. Indiana Jones and the Crystal Skull and different things like that, okay? Which is actually a really good one. I think it's the newest one. But actually Steve Barkhands, I don't know if I said that name properly, but he was the New Age yogi and teacher who totally renounced the New Age and is now basically an evangelist, a Christian evangelist, exposing the New Age, exposing yoga, exposing all of those practices. He and I share a similar belief that actually what more than likely will be the pervading thought after the rapture is that the earth has cleansed itself of its undesirables. Whatever you refer to the earth as, however you want to see that, those who have been holding the human race back with our primitive beliefs and our limiting, bigoted, racist even mindsets, those people have been eradicated from the earth. Now we can finally evolve into what we were always supposed to be. And I believe there's actually some rapture movies that have incorporated that thought. I believe that's going to be what Oprah's saying. That's going to be, what a lot of these spiritual individuals, theologians, thought leaders, influencers who are going to be interviewed on the subject. I believe that is going to be the overarching explanation for the rapture of the church. Now, I don't know how they work that into the disappearance of children, because the children are leaving too. Okay? Anyone who is not able to consciously understand faith and the belief and all of that, on whatever level, babies in the womb, they're going to be gone. So I don't know how they're going to explain that one away, okay? But by and large, I believe that that is what the New Age, which I believe is, that's the one world religion. It's old age. It's full of old age. Nothing about it is new except the packaging. And I believe that is going to be the prominent belief system until the Antichrist, harnesses it and does what he does with that, okay? Hopefully I answered that. Okay, my cousin Johnny made the comment. He said, I remember being interested in who they were, they being aliens, and where they came from until I saw a study that they were beings from another dimension and concluded that these are spirits and not actual beings, which explains their advanced capacities, not from another planet. We may be giving credit to evil spirits, plain and simple. They know this and have kept it from us. Years ago, before we had our scientific advancements in space, they would say aliens were from Mars. Now that we can see Mars, suddenly there are beings from many light years away. Since the average person can't disprove it, we believe it. Okay, that's a lot of truth that my cousin Johnny said, because it's true. A lot of people are realizing these creatures are not, they're not from another corner of the universe. They're from a completely different dimension. They're not from another planet. They're from another dimension, okay? Let's see what other comments there are. And if you guys have comments, please post them in the comment section. I'm reading these from the question I asked you guys last night about what questions you have for regarding aliens and UFOs. My cousin also goes on to say, I watched the movie The Fourth Kind. I think it's Close Encounters of the Fourth Kind. Actual film of people levitating and demonic voices coming from these alien entities. When you hear the abduction stories, it's always these beings walking through walls, flying around in ships that defy all gravity. And when you put these things together, it makes sense. Absolutely. Absolutely. You know, one of the things Steve, and God forgive me if I'm butchering his name, one of the things Steve Barkantz pointed out, you know, if these aliens are really actual aliens as to how pop culture understands them, why is it that they are trying to convince us that Jesus is not the Son of God? Why is it that they are trying to get us to change our Christian belief system? No story have you ever heard of an alien or even an angel of light coming to the earth, speaking to a human being, saying Islam is not the truth. Never have you heard a story of an alien coming and saying the Nation of Islam is a pack of lies. Never have you heard them saying Scientology is a load of crap. Never have you heard them coming and saying Buddhism is trash, Brahmanism is crazy, Sikhism is ridiculous. No. It's only things pertaining to the Bible that are supposed to not be believed. It was only when the angel appeared to Joseph Smith, he said, everyone's got it wrong. All the Christians have it wrong. So now you need to set up a new church, and now we know it's Mormonism, the Latter-day Saints. Okay? So, and it was the same thing with Muhammad when the angel, who is really Baal, going by the title of Allah, you know, came along and convinced him that everyone had it wrong. The Jews have it wrong, the Christians have it wrong. And a Christian, at least in name, you know, who was his cousin, his wife's cousin, who had zero discernment, told him, oh yeah, your experience was of God. And now we have Islam. And now probably because of legitimate Islam, we have fake Islam, aka the Nation of Islam under Farrakhan. It's ridiculous, okay? No aliens are coming to promote Jesus Christ, the one that's written in the Bible. They may bring another Jesus, a changeling Jesus, a false Christ. And do you know that the Vatican has a conference every single year about science, and they discuss, can aliens be baptized? They are paving the ground for an alien deception, for a race of extraterrestrial beings to bring another truth, another gospel, as the Apostle Paul called it, and deceive humanity. And all of this terminology, higher consciousness and vibrations and energies. And yes, I know energy is real, okay? But the way a lot of people use the terminology of energy and vibrations, they're not talking about science. They're talking about spirituality. They're talking about evil spirits or reading other people's spirits. And they're talking about spiritual matters using scientific language. It's demonic. Most of the time it's demonic, and usually, not always, but usually the people who use those terms regularly, it's a witch, okay? It's a witch. Most of the time. It's not true. There's something demonic afoot. If they're not a witch, then they got it from a witch. A lot of these master classes, business master classes, self-love master classes, a lot of them are rooted and grounded in straight up witchcraft, okay? But it goes hand in hand with the UFO phenomenon. Okay, let's see if there are any more questions. I hope you guys have some questions. Again, I'm still reading from my profile some of the comments people left there. And then someone asked, are aliens evil spirits? Of course, the answer is yes. It would be yes. Okay, let me see if there are any more on my page. That was my profile. Now we're going to look at my page. Okay. I think that's it. Okay. So, last call, y'all got really quiet. I want to hear your comments. I want to hear your aha moments. I want to hear your thoughts pertaining to tonight's teaching and the series thus far. Tomorrow night is the culmination. We are going to be talking about fallen technology. Yes, we're going to be exposing that. I'm excited. It's going to be the last night. Are shadow people aliens? I believe shadow people are demons. They could be aliens, but it's demonic. Whether it's a fallen angel or a demon, it's totally demonic and from the kingdom of darkness. Okay. I haven't done a lot of study on shadow people really at all. I encourage you to go to YouTube and look up Apostle Ivory Hopkins. He's the general of deliverance. He's legitimate. He's balanced. He knows his stuff. He is well-versed more than anyone I've ever heard in not only witchcraft in general, but American witchcraft, Southern witchcraft. So voodoo, hoodoo, juju, santeria, obia, all that stuff. And so he does address the subject of shadow people, Baron Samani, different things like that. So I definitely encourage you to look him up because he's thebomb.com and he's a sweetheart. And if you need deliverance, he does actually conduct deliverance via phone or Skype, or I think even like Facebook Messenger. So he's phenomenal. A sweet, and I don't mean that in no kind of way, a sweet, kind man of God. Absolutely love him. Okay. I think, does anybody have any more questions? Because that's all the questions on my profiles in my page. Any questions at all? It is 9:33. I've gone for 2.5 hours. And it's great. I'm going to upload this to YouTube. Monday through Thursday night are already on YouTube, so you guys can find it there. Just type in Desiree Mondesir, and I actually created a playlist called Otherworldly, so you guys can find all that there on YouTube as well. Any other questions or comments? Anything at all? I hear my neighbors coming in. I feel like I should be playing Jeopardy music right now. It's 9:34. I can go until 9:40 or 9:45 if you guys have questions. If not, I'll shut it down and get some food. I haven't eaten in several hours, y'all. I am very hungry, but I love talking to you guys. This is great. I haven't been live this frequently in like ever. Okay. And don't forget, Monday night at 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I am going live on Pastor Sebastian Rulock's page to talk about witches in the pews and warlocks in the pulpit, and that's going to be more structured like a Q&A, so you guys can come with your questions. And we also did part 1 and part 2, not this week, but the 2 weeks before that. Okay, so you can find that here. And you can find that he was in the comments earlier, so you can maybe scroll through the earlier comments and type on his profile and go see the videos in his profile or mine. But I'm excited about that. That's going to be Monday night on the 11th, which is 3 days before my birthday. Whoop, whoop, whoop. It's going to be 34. I love Starbucks. I love Home Goods. I love Target. I even love Walmart. I love books. I love Amazon. So just wink, wink. JK, but not really. I really do love all of those things. Home Goods is my happy place. I found some amazing finds there today. But any other comments, peoples, before we shut it down? I feel like I should do a countdown, but I won't. Okay, well, it looks like y'all are a little tight-lipped tonight. But come tomorrow night, Saturday evening, 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we're going to talk fallen technology. So if you have questions about fallen technology, I'm going to post another picture asking you guys to post your questions about that if you want to submit them in advance. Oh, Terry, you're still at work? You'll be on tomorrow. Awesome. Tara and I used to go to the same church. I ain't seen her in years, but that's a wonderful woman. Okay. But yeah, we'll be here tomorrow night, the last night. So if you have questions about fallen technology, either submit them tonight when I post for you guys to do that, or you can write them down or post them in your phone or something and save them for tomorrow. If you have questions about the whole series, about the book, y'all go buy the book. Okay, if you haven't already got the ebook Otherworldly, an in-depth study of fantastical beings that came out last week, what are you waiting for? Go to Desiree and Mondesir.com. Let me post the link in the comments. Okay. It always takes me forever to type on here, and I always say that because it's always true. I can type quicker on here than I do on Periscope. But you guys can go buy the brand new ebook on DesireeandMondesir.com. You can also take advantage of the November special, which is the ebook as well as the Angels and Demons and Nephilim teleseminar that I did back in August. So you're going to get 3 hours of audio. You're going to get the outline that I want to say is like 26 pages. And you're also going to get the diagrams that accompany the outline that accompany the lecture. And then, of course, the ebook. So go get that. You'll get them at a discounted rate because you're getting them together. And it's the November special. And I think it is special. So that would be a good companion. That teleseminar was actually from the ebook, because I was like, ooh, I want to do teleseminars on this, and so I did that one, and then did the Days of Noah and Lot in September, and that was exciting. I'm kind of thinking about bringing the Days of Noah teleseminar back, so let me know if you guys want me to bring that one back. There will be a cost, obviously, but let me know if you want me to bring that back and redo it, if you will. Or maybe you can never teach the same thing the exact same way twice, because you're always going to get downloads while you're talking. But let me know if you want me to bring that back, because I may do that. I'm thinking about it. And I'm thinking about trying to put together another maybe online summit or something for December or maybe early January. We'll see. I am not at all decided on what that will be. Hey, Asa, you're back. And y'all told me last night that I needed to do a commentary Bible. So one day I'm going to do a UFO study Bible, I promise. And I really need a better title than that. But if you have any more comments or questions, since all of y'all are coming back online, I'm not sure why that is. But if you have any more comments or questions about tonight's teaching on aliens and UFOs, post them now, or forever hold your peace until tomorrow at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll give you a little bit longer because I did see you guys just pop back on. And if you haven't gotten my brand new ebook yet, Otherworldly, please go pick it up. Support the young artists, okay? You can buy it as a birthday gift to me to go buy my book. Somebody bought the November special last night, so thank you to Tara, who's probably still at work and can't watch this now. But yeah, thank you to those of you who actually do invest in my products. Otherworldly is my 15th book. 15, y'all, since 2012. The last two, this one and the Little Book of Warfare, are strictly PDF on DesireeandMondesir.com. One day we'll put them in print, but yeah. So thank you, Asa. Thank you. Sebastian, if you're still on, can you please post the flyer to our Monday night witches in the pews and warlocks in the pulpit in the comments, so the people can see that, or at least let them know how to contact you so they can stay tuned for that, because it can't tag my page. I don't think it only tags my profile. Or maybe it does. Maybe we can figure that out. I don't know, but my profile is fine. Any other questions about aliens or UFOs before we go? It's 9:40. I'm willing to go until 9:45. If you guys want me to. If not, I will hop off. I should probably summarize what we talked about tonight. Don't you hate it when your document goes all the way back to the beginning? We talked about a lot. We talked about our aliens real. We talked about modern day Nephilim. We talked about portals. Which portals is going to factor into what we talk about tomorrow night with fallen technology. What else? We talked about missing time. We talked about time between times. We talked about hybridization, I'll call it. We talked about a lot of things tonight. This will be uploaded to YouTube, as with all the other segments or installments of this. So you guys can go look me up on YouTube and find that. Well, I guess that's it. But you guys have a wonderful evening. Take care. I love y'all. And I'll be back here at 7 p.m. Eastern Standard Time tomorrow. Okay? Bye-bye.